This is James Blackman Jr., former Indiana Hoosier. Make sure you're keeping up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm the man. I'm the man. I'm the man.
Welcome back on this Friday, July 24th. Thanks a lot. Jim Coyle here. Todd Leary as always. Now joined by one of our favorite guests that we've been able to have, Coach Tom Crean, former Hoosier coach, current coach at Georgia. Coach, how are you, sir?
I'm good. We're right in the finishing up our morning lift and conditioning out here. So I'm out by a hill. So if I get distracted over the next minute or so, you'll understand. So
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. What a unique summer, weird summer we've had. So how have you been able to try to spend your time getting through this situation?
Oh, I think positive attitude. I think the quicker you get over thinking about yourself and how it's affecting you, and more importantly, how you can help your family or your team or people that you come in contact with, that's the most important thing, because everybody's going through something hard, and the bottom line is trying to help them the best that you can, and then not waste time when it comes to making yourself better by studying different things or learning different ways or bringing it across to your coaches and team. But I think the biggest thing is you can't get self-centered on how it's affecting you. You've got to really focus on how it's affecting everybody else and what you can do to provide support.
And one of the things, you think of Tom Crean, you think of a guy who goes out and is able to find some great talent out there. I think of OG and those kind of guys who you found by just going out and working to find them. Well, those opportunities aren't there now. How many of those guys are going to get missed out on this season because of not the recruiting changes?
I don't know if they will. I think obviously there's very few tournaments and that there's limits there. But I think if you're doing your job and you're on it and you're really looking and paying attention, I think you can find people. I think I would be surprised if the signing period didn't change at some point. So it might even provide more time. But it's like, is the glass half full or is it half empty? And the people that complain and worry about not being able to recruit, that's not even close to the people that are worried about not being seen. So there's got to be different ways for them to be found uniquely through their high school film or through workout film. And it's just become very much a live stream summer and online summer, things of that nature. And you just have to be diligent in your approach. And the most important thing you do is you just keep looking for what you value as a coach, not what someone else values for you or not who someone else thinks should be able to play for you, but what you value as a coach. And I think the more things change with the grad transfers and the potential of the one-time transfer rule, which will go in effect next year, all those type of things, you've got to even more so stay true to the values that you want inside of a program, because there's going to be more and more change all the time for roster change, right? So how do you find people that are compatible to one another and that have the ability to, hopefully connect with one another, in life and as teammates and on the court.
Yeah, and talk about change. Earlier we were talking about the name, image, likeness as that continues to go on. There are so many things now that a college coach has to deal with that has nothing to do with college basketball. The name, image, likeness stuff. We've had COVID all summer to deal with. It has got to be one of the most difficult times to be a coach.
Maybe, but I think the coaches that, worry about the noise or worry about the distractions, they get away from what's most important. And your job is to make people better, right? Make your coaches better, make your players better. And I think the more time you spend, now you got to try to navigate it. Don't get me wrong. You got to try to learn. You got to try to navigate. You got to try to be ahead of the curve, I guess, when it comes to how it's going to affect you. But you've got to stay true to those. All become distractions if you let it, rather than how are we going to make this work? How are we going to be prepared for it? And most importantly, try to provide an atmosphere that according to the rules, okay, if it's name, image, and likeness, how does that best serve the players on your team? If it's a newcomer coming in, that's had a COVID summer and we're in our first week of full team training, and we'd be finishing today, our 8-week session. I mean, that's how different it is right now. So you just have to deal with the distractions best as you can and not let them become that. So to me, that's what's most important. And it's real easy to complain about the way things are rather than try to do the best you can with the way things are going to be and be prepared for that as that happens.
You're recruiting wise, you're known as a relentless recruiter, and that's kind of something that's been taken away. That face to face, that touch, where coaches are allowed to be with their recruits right this summer has been eliminated. How are you getting around that and making do with that sort of thing?
Well, again, I think you just find different ways with the technology. Whether it's FaceTime has been there a bit, whether it be the Zoom meetings. To me, it's studying a lot of film. It's really being able to study the film, evaluate the player, try to give him as much help as you can, see how he responds to that help. I think the big thing is, you have to really factor in where people are at in their locations and what they have access to or don't have access to. Like for us, we brought people back in stages because we had some people here or some people in our program, and we signed 4 new players in the spring that I had never met in person outside of a Zoom or a FaceTime until I've actually seen him on campus. In fact, one is still not here because he's finishing summer school, and I still haven't met him in person. Yet I've seen him play in person, but I haven't met him in person. And I think what you do is you look at what people have. Like, it's not a normal summer. So we had some kids that were in great situations with their training. And so it didn't do any good for us to bring them in here early, because that would, especially with the restrictions that you have, it's more important that they get better every day. Well, I think it's the same as a recruit. Some people have access to be able to do more. Some don't have access at all. And I think it comes down to how resilient, how resourceful, and how committed are you to doing the best that you can with what you have. If you can't find a gym, if you can't find a court, what are you still doing to get better? And I think those kind of things show themselves through the recruiting process just as much as when you're watching somebody play. What's their commitment level to getting better? What are their values to getting better? And how do they fit what you're trying to do?
Hey, Coach, it's Todd Leary here. I just want to say, like, you have to have an enormous advantage when it comes to this situation. And no one's going to root for COVID, obviously. But just listening to you talk in this phone call or in this interview, the positivity that you put off is electric. And I think that's always been one of your biggest assets. And one of the things, I think you're probably have an advantage in this COVID situation over a lot of other coaches and programs because of how positive you are about everything. But on that line, like, I know you probably don't get to follow it and see it as much because you're in Georgia now and Athens is a beautiful town. But people in Bloomington still talk about you on Twitter daily, pretty much, about the impact you had in their life in some way in Bloomington. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we take away from the Tom Crean era at Indiana. And it's just such a big involvement that you had in the community. But I want to tell you that my first thought when I knew you were coming on was to ask about Riley, because I know the people in Bloomington, I've been asked numerous times about how was Riley doing, pitching at Georgia. And he was really, a lot of people were excited about having him come to Indiana University. And that was a big loss as well. So I guess I'll ask for everybody else. How's Riley doing down there?
Sure, I appreciate that, Todd. I do. Riley is doing great. He didn't go to Indiana, obviously. He got drafted by the White Sox out of Bloomington North,
right.
And it was a late round pick situation. So he went to IMG for a year, came to Georgia, played for a year, but really lost his love for baseball at the expense of wanting to be a basketball coach. So it's really not a bad situation. I mean, my wife and I, Joni, we wanted him to play as long as he could, but his heart was really in coaching. So he gave it up last September, and he was a student assistant for us this year. And he's doing a fantastic job. I mean, it's like having a graduate assistant or a young player development guy in your staff that just turned 21. So he's got a really strong mind for it. He's got a tremendous work ethic. He's got the bloodlines, with being around it all this time and with Joni's family. So he's done a great job. Our 3 kids, I'm proud of all of them. They've been very, very resilient and resourceful. My daughter Megan's an IU grad, and she lives in Atlanta and has done a fantastic job using her public relations degree. And my daughter Ainsley's going to be a 9th grader at Athens Academy. And I appreciate what you said, because the bottom line is It's like the Indiana, being at Indiana. Everybody thinks that's hard to be there. That's not hard to be there. You're there with the people, right? The people that made that program, the people that made that the formidable arena and atmosphere that it is. Those are genuine, caring people. There's always going to be pockets of people that have a different idea.
Sure.
The hard part there wasn't coaching Indiana. It's dealing with, certain things in-house that you would deal with. Those are the things that become hard. Working with the people and wanting to see them be successful, wanting to see them be happy. That's what I miss a lot of that about Indiana. There's such great people there that make up the fabric not only of the community and the state, but make up being an Indiana fan. And so that's in a sense, that's what you have to have. There's so many people have it hard, and I think it's like with our players right now. What do you want people to know about you, right? Because that's how you help them learn to treat you. What do you want them to know about you? Do you want to be seen as somebody that's moody and self-serving and unmotivated, or do you want to be seen as somebody that's got a lot of energy, cares about other people, wants to be successful, competitive as can be? That's what you want. So, I'm trying to live my life like that every day and surround myself with people that are the same way.
Well, you've left a mark for sure. I've got a text into the show from Ryan, who lives in Whitlake-Moore, Michigan, says, can you let Coach Crean know I'm a huge fan from Mount Pleasant, and he knows where he is, I guess. He said, let him know he follows you in Georgia, and his older brother lives in Atlanta. So you got some fans that have followed you down there as well, no doubt.
It's Mount Pleasant. That's my hometown, so that's great to hear. Thank you.
Absolutely. And well, we appreciate you joining us. And talk about your son getting into coaching. We talk about coaching trees. This is a real coaching tree because it starts back with Jack Harbaugh. You got the Harbaughs and now the Creans. What in the world, back in the day when you were first dating Joni, what was that like going into that household?
It was intimidating a little bit to begin with. It really was because, I knew Jack Harbaugh. Speaking of Mount Pleasant, I knew Jack Harbaugh is the coach of Western Michigan when I went to Central Michigan, right? So that's a huge, huge rivalry. That's the Indiana-Purdue rivalry of outside of Michigan State. That's a rivalry back there. So I was always down a little bit, but they eased into it really well. Both times you meet their brothers for the first time. There's going to be, you want to be on your best behavior. But pretty quick, it became that they were great guys, and it was a tremendous family. And I think that was really clear early on that they're such a great family. And I've been very fortunate all these years, to be in it 27 years now. So it's been great.
Talk about some skull sessions. I bet those were some good ones to have.
No doubt.
Coach, I said, you talk about some great skull sessions. I can't imagine what those Christmas skull sessions were like.
Yeah, they're tremendous leaders. It's every one of them. And if Joni would have chosen to coach or, do something like that, she'd have been the same way. The mindset of that family is just tremendous. So it's very, very fortunate to be in that.
Well, Coach, we're very, very fortunate that you took the time to join us. We greatly appreciate you because we know you have a lot of things to get to and do, and we really sincerely appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Sure, no problem. Todd, I want to ask before we get up, how are your boys?
Everybody's doing great. I appreciate you asking that. They're doing terrific. Got one of them at IU and have one that's finishing up at Carmel this year. So I appreciate you asking.
Oh, that's great. I still remember seeing them for the first times when they were in the camp, when they were coming to the games, the whole thing. I know this. You're one great father. I always knew that back then, and I'm sure that's the when I know that.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
Coach Crean, you've been tremendous. It's a tremendous honor having you come on. Hopefully we get to do it sometime again in the future. But, man, oh, man, I hope you and your family have a great rest of the summer, and thank you so much.
Thanks. You guys, too, and I appreciate it. And everybody back in Bloomington, we've always appreciated the way those 9 years, it was 1/6 of my life, as a 54-year-old guy, being there 9 years. But it was just tremendous to be around so many great people in that state.
There's a lot more people that appreciate you than maybe you realize. But
for sure. No doubt about that.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you saying that.
This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.